Welcome to a new daily top AskReddit video. Today's topic.
What biological fact about the other sex did you not know until quite recently? The towel isn't a hat, the hair is wrapped into it. PSA. Do not pull the head towel, ever. Isn't there a story, Poe, closing parenthesis, about a woman whose head is held on by a string and her boyfriend pulls it and it falls off? That's what I'm picturing. That a woman's vagina secretes a fluid which can bleach their underwear. Can actually put holes in the underwear over enough time. Vaginas are so metal, sign of the horns. Sadly, a lot of women don't know this because older generations felt speaking about female anatomy was taboo, so either didn't know themselves or didn't teach their daughters. Heck, my mom is a boomer and she neglected to even mention periods to me. Imagine being a preteen with your first period, so you think you're dying and your mom just yells at you and tosses a pad at you. I've even had friends whose own moms shamed them for staining their underwear and demanded they wear panty liner to keep clean. Like, no, that's a sign of a healthy vagina and that the self-cleaning feature is working. Same. Like, no birds and bees talk, no periods. Nothing. Fucking weird. Same. My mom didn't talk about my period at all and it was embarrassing and shameful for me. She didn't teach me how often I should change my pad or how to use a tampon. I can't imagine not being there for my daughter during puberty to help her answer her questions and make sure she knows that what she's going through is completely normal. pH ranges from 3.8 to 5.0, which means it can be fairly acidic. In turn, semen is basic. It has to be to survive that environment. This is why you should clean yourself after having raw sex. A neutral pH in the vaginal canal can promote bacterial vaginosis or yeast infections. And of course, condoms prevent that issue entirely. Period shits are real. Many women poop a lot on the first day of their period, like triple what we shit on non-period days. And for a lot of women, it's like having constipation and diarrhea at the same time, which you wouldn't think is possible. But it definitely is. I'm sitting on the toilet now suffering from this. I want to die, respectfully. And it's like diarrhea. Definitelt more loosey-goosey. I'm a girl, but didn't know this about us. Newborn girl babies can have periods due to hormones still in their system from the mother. It's called a false period. 43-year-old woman, never had kids. I had no idea about this. I don't know why, but to me this is one of the most shocking things on this thread. That's crazy. I learned about this fairly recently. Asked my mom and she said, yeah, you had it. Was kinda freaked, but the doctor had warned me about it. Quote, I'm in my 30s, so you're not alone in learning. 2 of my children had them. Nobody fucking warned me. Suddenly my newborn started bleeding from the vagina and I panicked like a bastard. That sounds absolutely horrifying. And for the same reason, babies of both sexes can produce witch's milk. When my first was born, the nurses were like, please do not try to express milk from your newborn's nipples. I'm like, the thought would have never crossed my mind, but thanks anyway for the tip. Question mark. Do people actually do this? I didn't know, until 10 years ago, that the menstrual pad is stuck on the underwear. I thought that you stuck it tight on the vagina like a Band-Aid adhesive bandage. I'm 39 and I've been married 13 years. Ha ha god. Can you imagine a way to make a period worse than to have to rip off bandages from your vagina multiple times a day? Rip to anyone without a Brazilian skull. Guys control their urethra from the base of their penis, not the tip. That's why they have to shake it out. As a girl, this blew my mind. When we turn the faucet on, then the exit point is right there. Dudes have to go through a hose that they can only control from the base. Just learned this and I am a 36-year-old woman, tears of joy. Women have, by far, the greatest propensity for iron deficiency, anemia, mainly because of periods, pregnancy, etc. I've recently heard that ladies generally make up about 95% of anemia cases. It's not that men can't get it too, but usually if a man has it there's likely another underlying condition. I guess it never dawned on me being a man that all this blood loss causes such likelihood of iron deficiency. I mean, I know women lose blood, but it didn't click that this can cause them problems. I literally learned today that adult women, before menopause has finished, need nearly twice as much iron as men per day. It explains a lot. So if you have a special lady in your life and she's on her period, and you cook, make her something iron-rich like steak, leafy green veggies, stuff that help her with her iron. It's basically one raw bleeding internal wound in there on that time of the month. Which is also why for a lot of women it's painful or at least very uncomfortable. It's like nursing an internal bleed once a month. And the heavier she tends to bleed, often the more uncomfortable it is for her. If she is bleeding and in pain a lot though, that is possibly endometriosis, PCOS, or if she's expecting it could be an ectopic pregnancy, which is very dangerous. If you ever suspect this is what is happening to a woman in your life, get her to the hospital. Don't feel bad. For most of my life male doctors didn't know what endometriosis was. I got my period when I was 9 and was bleeding heavily by the time I was 13. I had clots the size of golf balls. Aside from menstrual cramps, I had severe pain because I had endometrial tissue growing on my bowels and bladder, so it was excruciating to go to the bathroom when I had my period. I literally passed out a few times from pain and blood loss. All GYNs were male back then, and many were from countries where females were viewed as crazy, inferior beings created for procreation. Do you think you are special? Women have pain and bleeding every month. You're no different. Take aspirin and iron pills. Now imagine what aspirin and iron pills do to your digestive system. They give you ulcers and constipation. I didn't know what endometriosis was until about 5 years before my periods finished for good. Thanks internet. Until that point, doctors had been telling me that it was just bad that way for some women. And, oh well, fun fact, I have an IUD and haven't had a period in over 15 years. My iron levels are that of a 25-year-old male athlete. I am a 33-year-old woman. Yep. Had to be given hemoglobin. Closing parenthesis. Because of anemia. Was so weak one day I couldn't lift the tea kettles at work. Which was very unusual for me. And I hated my job anyways, so I asked if I could leave early and go to the because I felt super weak. My hemoglobin levels were at 7. I have an IUD now and it's amazing for me. I didn't know that the labia didn't have any sort of mobility. I had this idea that when vaginas go to pee, the lips would sort of open. Edit for the vocab. My vocab kinda broke here. I definitely bungled with saying vaginas instead of people with vaginas. Thank you to the many that informed me further of vaginal anatomy. Like the Demogorgon? ? This one wins. That's hilarious. When vaginas go to pee. I have questions about what exactly you learned. Like automatic doors? ? Wahahaha. Revolving light opening bay doors, revolving light. Inversely, I once thought penises were like elephant trunks. Prehensile tentacles that could be moved everywhere and could easily grab objects. Man, wouldn't sex be wild if it was? Blowjobs would be more interesting. Start feeling around in there. Let her know she has a cavity in one of her molars tooth. Very convenient to hold a hammer when trying to level a shelf. Wait till you hear about pee coming from the urethra and not the vagina. That shit will blow your mind. When a guy is taking a poop, the dangling penis and the poop do not actually brush against each other. Don't know why, but this blew my mind. Unless the guy is packing an absolute cannon. When I asked this to my male friends, one of them had the same exact reply: tears of joy. If you don't have a penis, you're used to your genitals being right between your legs, not stuck out in front. The placement surprised me as well, though it answered my question of how guys aren't constantly sitting on their junk. I do occasionally sit on my nuts and it hurts. Lol. That both pee and sperm use the same piping work. Somehow I never thought about that. Because we have two separate systems, I thought it's the same with dudes. They're the same pipes, but there's a switch at one of the junctions to go from one to the other. If a guy just had an orgasm, it's unlikely he could pee right away. It has to relax and switch back. Simple explanation, obviously not the exact mechanisms for how it works. Trolley problem. When we had sex ed in school, my teacher said we could ask him anything without being ashamed. I was 13, asexual and innocent but curious about the human body. So I just went up to him and asked whether peeing and ejaculating felt the same way. He thought about it for quite some time before he could give me an answer. Apparently, he'd never thought about that before. Lol. If you wait long enough to pee, it can be pretty close. Okay, this is embarrassing. But when guys talk about puberty and the balls dropping, I thought it was this explosive thing. Like one day you're walking down the street, and bam, your balls just come hurtling down. Edit because I keep getting replies to this effect. Yes, I know that testicles descend within the first few months of a boy's life. My mistaken impression was based on the expression, balls dropping. Obviously I've since learned that this doesn't happen during puberty. As a completely unasked for added bit. In the process of forming all of the above, the testicles pass through a structure called the inguinal canal, which generally remain for the rest of a person's life. You can actually shove your testicles partway back the way they came, essentially tucking them inside the pelvis. They are not terribly inclined to stay there of their own volition, though, but it can be encouraged with various adhesives, some of which are purpose-made for the task, or sturdy, tight-fitting undergarments. This interesting factoid is of most practical use to a person who, for whatever reason, wants to conceal that they have male genitals, as one can tuck the testicles into the abdomen, fold everything else backwards, and quash it flat into a sort of indeterminate mass. Which is to say, this fact is how tucking works for transgender women who choose to go that route. Edit. It occurs to me that given the number of comments and people who have upvoted, that I probably ought to do a quick set of public service announcements. If you are looking for garments to assist in getting things to stay put, then what you want are quite literally called tucking underwear, or alternatively a gaff. Lots of places make the stuff. If that is out of your means. Bikini bottoms often do the job fairly well. If you are going to use adhesives, use something made for the task if possible. And if not, at least something made to go on human skin. Pretty sure those martial artists that let people kick them in the balls over and over do this too. Ah bah ha 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 bam. Not me, but medical science in general. The 2nd century Greek physician Galen is widely regarded as the father of modern medicine. But he had some goofy ideas about women. He thought they had fewer teeth than men, and that their uterus moved around inside the body. The origin of the word, hysteria. Galen's teachings were so influential that nobody even bothered to check on any of these until over 1,000 years later. Bro could have literally counted the teeth himself. Hard to find a person with a full set of teeth back then, I guess. When women started attending college in the 19th century United States, critics argued that it would make women infertile because more blood would flow to their brains instead of their uteruses. I feel like there was a trope where people would fear with every new mode of transportation, trains, cars, planes, etc., that women's uteruses would fall out from the extreme speed